Welcome to an edition of In Vivo. I'm your host today, Nick Talbot, with a special edition looking at high school football. I'm joined today by David Hinojosa and Christina Huang. Guys, we're going to take a little bit to get into it because we want our listeners, viewers, readers, whatever you want to call us today, people who are joining us live, to submit your questions using the Q&A button. That way you can ask us questions. We're going to take questions here in maybe 10, 15 minutes, or maybe even a little sooner than that, depending on how many of y'all flock to us. So first, David, though, the question everyone's probably going to want to know, who are the teams to watch this season? Who's going to make that state run just like Smithson Valley? Is it Smithson Valley again?
I think Smithson Valley has the best chance to make another state run of at least our bigger schools, the 5A, 6As, just because they're really set up on defense. They just to kind of recap what they did and the significance of what they did last year. They won a state title. It's only the 18th time in UIL history that a team from the San Antonio area has won a state championship, and that dates back to 1920. So the significance of that was amazing, and it's been something that Larry Hill and Smithson Valley have been chasing for a while. It was their fifth time there, and they finally got it done. But on the defensive side, they're really set up. Hudson Woods was our defensive player of the year last year, defensive end. He's going to SMU, the up and coming Mustangs. So that's pretty good. Justin Roberts plays alongside him on the line. And they also have a really talented kicker. And I think sometimes, and Larry Hill's really big about the special teams. He preaches it. And I think a lot of the difference in games comes from special teams. That's something that's kind of a Larry Hill staple. And Trent Amaya is one of the best kicker punters in the state. He kicked a state championship record, 4 field goals when they beat Highland Park 32-20. If you just do the math there, that's the difference. And so I think they're set up there. Offensively, they have a lot of holes to fill, but the way that they worked their offense last year, they had a quarterback by the name of Ty Knutson, who was a sophomore. He would go in every third series and play because he was basically giving Cade Spradling, their starter, a spell, because Cade also started at middle linebacker, which is just an amazing thing when you think about a team at that level, the highest 5A division, playing. They have a lot of 2A guys, and he was one of them, playing basically the quarterback on both sides. But Ty's a pure quarterback. He had a really good season. He threw for over 1,000 yards, and I think he's ready to take the reins there. So I think Smithson Valley is the team to beat. But what's interesting about that district is that it's got to be the toughest 5A district in Region 4. Smithson Valley won the state championship last year, but they didn't win district. Piper won district. And Piper, they've got a lot of holes to fill, but they also have a really tough defense. Michael Bust, I hope I said that right, at defensive end. And they have a linebacker by the name of Leighton Springer. They were both on our all-area team last year. I think defense is going to be their hallmark this year. And I think they're going to have to find some offense because they have to replace Caden Keith, the all-area quarterback from last year. And then you got New Braunfels. They have a guy named Caden Mills, one of the best dynamic receivers. And then you got Seguin with a talented quarterback in Corey Daly. And then you have Bernie Champion with a talented quarterback and Julian Averett. So I think whoever gets out of that district is going to have a chance to make a run.
All right. And so that's one of our best teams. What about best players? Who are we looking at to kind of break through? Who's going to be our best top recruit? Who's going to go to the next Texas or next A&M or some other Division I power program from the area?
Yeah, I mean, I think Madison wide receiver Jordan Clay is definitely one of our top players to watch this year. He was named to our all area team last year, and entering his senior season, I think he really wants to lead Madison back into the postseason. He just committed to Baylor over the summer, over Colorado and Oklahoma, and he had many more Division I offers outside of those three. So I definitely think that Jordan is someone to really pay attention to and keep an eye on this season. He was selected to the Navy All-American Bowl this past January as a junior, and this was the first time that the Navy All-American Bowl allowed juniors to play in that event, and he's set to return as a senior in 2026, and he's also going to be playing in the Polynesian Bowl in Hawaii and the the Under Armour All-American event as well. So he's definitely caught the attention of a lot of big time college programs, and he's obviously caught the attention of all these big national recruiting events as well.
I think Jonathan Hatton from Steel, running back. He's interesting because he's a 4-year starter. He started as a freshman when he was in Brandeis, and he transferred to Steel. And he's kind of been a guy that Steele's had this dynamic offense, really well balanced offense with Chad Warner, Jalen Cooper, Royal Capel, who are now, Chad was the quarterback in Royal, and Jalen were the receivers. They're now in college. And Jonathan has really been the focal point of that Steel offense. He's always been the guy that gave them some balance. Well, they have so many holes to fill on offense. I think he's going to be the go-to guy. He's going to Texas A&M, so obviously he's got some pedigree there. And Mike Elko's really high on him. So I look for Steele to kind of use him, and we'll see how he takes it. I think that last year when they played Westlake, they were really trying to work him early in the ground game, but the game got away from them a little early. But they definitely made a concerted effort to get him going. He popped a big run, so he showed his capabilities. I think when you look at Jordan and Jonathan, they're probably, at least this of the senior class, they're probably the top guys that we have.
All right, a couple plugs off talking about our top players. Just come out last week, our top 50 athletes. Check that out in the Express News and expressnews.com. That's the top 50 athletes, not just in high school football, like we're talking about today. That's across all sports. And then coming out this Sunday, we'll have our high school football preview. We'll talk about who's the top 5 quarterbacks, top 5 running backs, all that. We'll have some features in there. Who's the top team? Our class rankings are going to come out. Make sure you pick up a copy of the Sunday paper, or just go to expressnews.com. Subscribe there that way. Be digital. So I just got that plug. Also, if you're talking to us now, hit that Q&A button, ask us some questions. First one is, what local schools could take the biggest leap this year? Who wasn't very good last year, or kind of middling last year, that you kind of expect to kind of jump up and maybe, this team could be pretty good. They got a lot of returners.
That's a good question. I think
tough one, right?
It's a tough one because when we look at these things, I look at it so like it's so top heavy. But if you're looking at looking at a team that could make us surprise, I think although we have them ranked number 2, and obviously Johnson is not a team that would be a surprise that they're number 2. But in terms of making a playoff run, which they haven't really done in a while, I think they might be set up for it, because just they have a great junior class of offensive guys that they got a lot of playing time last year. Elvis Estrada, the quarterback, was really he did a really good job. He did an admirable job last year, because he kind of got thrown in as the starting quarterback as a sophomore after Ty Hawkins left kind of late in the summer to go to IMG Academy. I don't think that was an expected thing. And it took him a while, but when he found his legs and arm, he was able to perform very well. Yeah, I don't know. That he kind of caught me off guard on that one.
Well, that's what our readers are for, to catch us off guard.
So that's something that we have to study up on. Maybe Piper. We'll see. I mean, Piper is although they're going for their 3rd championship in a row, they have enough talent there to maybe fill those holes that they need on offense. And I don't know. That's kind of what I'm looking at.
How about this school? Our next reader is asking us about Judson. What will it take for Judson to regain his past glory as a football powerhouse? Is it even possible at this point for them? I mean,
Well,
that'd be a team to come in,
Well, Judson, obviously they have that, they have the name,
Mhm.
they have the name, they have the reputation. They've won, I think, I want to say 5 state championships around there. But it's been a while since they've really been significant. They haven't had a winning record, I think, since 2020. And I remember it was probably about 4 years ago. I asked a former Judson assistant now. I asked him kind of the same question, and he alluded to the point that, well, when Judson had their glory days, they were a 1 high school district. Now they have Veterans Memorial. Now they have Wagner. So that's kind of slice it up a little bit. So I don't know. I just don't think the math's out there. And also when you look at all the other stuff going on in Judson, they're losing enrollment. I think they were really close to closing a middle school in that feeder. So, it's a numbers game when it comes to football. When you split kids into two other schools, and then when you just lose an enrollment, you don't have the depth that you need, and I don't know. And this year they have a really talented offensive lineman, J. Storm Knight, who's a sophomore, and he's probably going to be in 3 years, 2 years, he's probably going to be our biggest recruit coming out of here, literally, because he's like 6'7", 6'8", but he's got really good feet. But I don't know. I mean, they haven't had a winning record in a while, and they haven't, and that's kind of the biggest drought that they had in terms of just losing seasons since the early 70s. I don't know, unless they just somehow turn Judson into one school. I don't know. I think to me it's a numbers game for them.
All right, we got a deep dive question here too. Already making a score prediction here. Can we get a 2025 Gucci Bowl prediction? And is that rivalry still relevant? The reader said they missed the days when when the game was actually mattered, or missed the days when the first game of the season as well.
Well, it's the Clark Churchill game. The reason it's not the first game of the season because they're in the same district now. So that took away a lot of the allure there because it was always like the traditional Thursday. It was always on Thursday, um, and it has lost a lot of its luster. I think. I mean, I got here in 2013, and that game was. I mean, it wasn't as relevant as I know it's been as I've growing up in South Texas. I always had heard about the Gucci Bowl. I just think that, just the way that the schools have expanded just the way the schools have expanded and the growth in San Antonio is
Yeah,
so far away from where the center of San Antonio is, where those schools are generally located. Yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, it's not the first. If they don't play the first, I mean, they would play at the first game of the season if they weren't in the same district. But once they got realigned in the same district, they had to move it obviously into the season. So
yeah, the dynamics of San Antonio have kind of changed on that one, and maybe it's a little
yeah.
less Gucci from letting it used to be.
Well, I think, and if you want to look at rivalries, let's just go there. I think Piper Smithson Valley is going to it's going to be the biggest rivalry outside. I think Harlandale and McCollum is still the one because it's such a big community down there on the south side. But I think Piper and Smithson Valley is going to be it's going to be a big rivalry for years to come. I covered the first one they played at Piper, and it was it was quote unquote playoff atmosphere, and a lot of it was a lot of Piper, a lot of parents that have kids that go to Piper, they're Smithson Valley alums. So that split was already there, and they were already bleeding purple over there. That's one of their that's one of their colors there. So yeah.
All right, and this is coming out of blue question. Someone wants to know what your favorite district to cover is. I guess that kind of comes down to who the best teams are sometimes, and what has the most interesting storyline.
I don't know, Christina, you're kind of new, so I don't know if there's been any schools or any districts that you liked at all.
I mean, I've only been here for about 9, 10 months
Mm-hmm.
at this point. But I really like the district that Johnson and
Mm-hmm.
Reagan are. I think, this year it's gonna be really competitive again, kind of going off of, what David was saying earlier about Johnson and their expectations for this year. I think they're gonna be really, really exciting. I'm really excited to see what they do this year, especially, like David mentioned, they have a really strong junior class. I was impressed with how Elvis Estrada, their quarterback, handled the situation that he was kind of, dealt into last year. And Johnson only lost one game in the regular season before they were eliminated by Austin Lake Travis in the playoffs. And I think they also have a handful of guys who have, serious Power Four offers. They have a wide receiver, Bryson Thompson, who I would expect to be, Elvis's number one option. And then they also have a really talented cornerback named Mikael McCurry, who also has some pretty sizable college offers as well. So I'm really excited to cover that district this year and to kind of see, what goes down there. Can Johnson get a back-to-back district title? And if so, how far are they going to make it in playoffs?
Well, one of my favorite places to go cover a game, I don't get there very often, just because of the festive scene out there is Southwest. I love covering Southwest football games, just because the food is amazing, man.
Oh, it comes down to the food, doesn't it?
Well, they actually they have their boys soccer team. Uh they make street tacos there with the grill and all that kind of thing. I mean, and they are really good. They make them by themselves. I've heard a lot of them work at the local taquerias around there, so they know what they're doing. And and that they just have there's such a festive scene out there. It's like you're at a festival or something. I think that's kind of what it always reminded me of. And as someone who grew up by the border down in South Texas, it's kind of like it reminds me of home a little bit, and but it's really cool. And they just got a really nice scene there, and it's you know it's a one high school stadium. There's two high schools in Southwest, but they each have their own stadium. So, but it's really definitely kind of a community event, and Southwest has been really good in football the last few years, so that helps too. So, always get some great crowds out there. Now they got a nice little, well, they got a nice big new. It's not like a new stadium, but it has this massive facelift where they just redid the home side of it. So it's really nice. So that's my favorite place to go to. I don't go there that often, but I always look forward to going there. So I guess that would be my answer.
All right, yeah, food usually wins out. My favorite used to
Yes.
be when I covered up in high schools up in Killeen, Texas, used to be Gatesville because they bring
Ah.
us warm donuts at halftime.
Oh,
That's always the winner.
that's
Donuts are always the answer, right?
that's always the way to a sports writer's heart,
Right.
is the food.
All right. Well, we've talked a little bit about Piper, and this reader wants to know about how odd was it for Piper to rise to prominence so fast? You know, we've had a couple of schools like that too. I don't want to just touch on Piper here too, because another team we have, Davenport, that just opened. Now they're our best overall school. They won our Dan Cook Cup last year.
Yeah, they're a really good 4A program, and they've risen pretty high, and Piper as well. Um, I just think that that talent out there in that area, because they're all basically all in the same area. Smithson Valley dropped down from 5A from 6A to 5A because Davenport and Piper opened. Otherwise, they'd probably still be 6A. And Smithson Valley's always had a solid program. Even in 6A, they could compete. So I think that's part of it. You know, they just have a really good, and the growth is all out there. There's just a lot of, there's a lot of kids out there now. So again, it's a numbers game, and I think that's it. I mean, it has to be it. I mean, I think.
All right, and let's talk about bring it back in a little bit. Let's talk about the District 27 race, District 27 6A race. Reagan Johnson up there.
Yeah, I think Christina touched on it a little bit. Now, well, Reagan, it's been Reagan and Johnson. They've won the last, I want to say 5 district titles. It'd be either them or it's been either Reagan or Johnson has won the last 5 district titles there. I think Madison was the last one not Johnson and Reagan to win. I think I want to say it was 2020 or 2019. I think Johnson is the team to beat, but Reagan's going to be an interesting team. They have a new coach out there, but it's not a new coach. Preston Meyer. He's I think he was a defensive coordinator there for 4 years. He got promoted when Lyndon Hamilton left for Gonzalez to be the athletic director and coach out there. And he's he's a defense coordinator. They got a lot of great defensive guys returning. Cole Higbee, who was on our all-area team, is coming back, and I think he's probably, I don't know if he was a defensive player of the year in that district, but he's probably, if they ever did like a preseason defensive player of the year in that district, he's probably the guy. I think it's going to come down to those two. Brandeis. Brandeis is always a team that they always have a lot of talent. They did make the playoffs last year, but they have a emerging quarterback by the name of Winter Smith. I think he could factor in there. I think Brandeis could be a playoff team. And then Clark's an interesting one. They have a kid by the name of a wide receiver named Elijah Johnson, and they have a running back named by the name of Xavier Canavas. I think they had really good seasons last year. We had them in consideration for all area team, but we're so deep on the offensive side. But they were like the the honorable mention. If we had one, they would probably be there. I think those two teams could factor in, but I really think it's going to be a Johnson Reagan district.
All right, here's team. We got a question. Canyon Lake's a little bit outside our area, but they want to know if we have any thoughts on them taking a big leap forward under year 2 and under Sam Parker. I don't know if, that's kind of on the fringes here for us.
Well, we do. I got my cheat sheet here. Canyon Lake, yes, they are on the periphery, but they actually had a breakout season last year. They made their deepest playoff run since 2017, and I think they're really building there. They are in a tough district because they do compete with Davenport. And I think so, Davenport is probably the team to beat there. And I think Bandera is in there. And uh, if you look at our paper, we're going to have our preseason rankings. And I won't tell you where they are, but Davenport, Canyon Lake, and Bandera are all in our top 10 for we're doing our rankings different this year. We're doing sub 5A rankings, and we're combining our 6A 5A rankings into one, just to kind of give it a little bit more balance. And
Right.
that's how a team like Canyon Lake gets more on our radar.
Yeah, and if you want to find out where those rankings are, you got to buy the paper on Sunday or subscribe to expressnews.com.
Yeah, I knew that Nick would come through with the
You got to plug,
with the plugs.
Got to do that. We do have some more questions though, so we're gonna fill those a little bit. Uh, how do San Antonio high school teams measure up against the rest of South Texas?
The rest of South Texas.
South Texas. I mean, that's sometimes who they face in the playoffs. We get those first, those Laredo teams. I guess they're going up against.
Traditionally, they've done
Can they?
very well.
Can we get out? Can they get out of the playoffs
Well,
in those rounds?
so there's two ways to look at it. You got South Texas and you got Region 4, right?
Region that makes a big difference.
It makes a big difference, and I think you alluded to it. Um, Traditionally, um, the teams in San Antonio are able to handle in the playoffs. I mean, I don't know what the numbers are, but I think if we actually charted them, it would probably be at an 80% clip. San Antonio beating any team that's not in Austin or Lake Travis. Um, and I continue to see that happening this year. I know actually I went down to Edinburgh, my hometown, to go cover Smithson Valley playing in a playoff game, and they handled them pretty easily. And the big obstacle is when they play Austin and Lake Travis, and then I think it kind of works the other way.
Yeah,
But I don't see, if it does work out that way, I don't see it. I don't see any problems there
yeah.
for South
On
Texas.
the flip side, Lake Travis is what 34-1. It's insane.
Yeah, they're 34-1, and
Did I get that right?
I don't know.
It's close.
It's up there. Yeah. So, yeah, and I think last year, and even when Brennan had their good teams, there was always this optimism that they could probably take one in the playoffs against them. And then, I think Steele had about as good a team as I've seen since they were making it to the state championships, and they just couldn't compete, when they got to the state quarterfinals. So yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah.
So
No, kind of just adding on to what David just said, like, I went out to Johnson practice last week, which the story is online. But they're well aware that, Lake Travis has ended Johnson's season 2 years in a row now, and they know that, if they want to make Jerry World, if they want to get there, they're going to have to go through Austin. They're going to have to figure that out. So it definitely seems like that is, a top priority for them. They're definitely taking it, one game at a time, of course. But they're well aware of, kind of the history between, the Austin teams and the San Antonio teams in the postseason.
All right. What matchups are you looking forward to most this year? More just singular matchup. What's one matchup you're excited to see this year? What game do you want to, or are y'all going to fight over Dick? I know I want to cover that one.
I don't know. We haven't well, actually, I kind of brought it up to Christina earlier this week, and I think she basically said, let's just get through this and let's get through our football preview stuff first. But I think the Piper Smithson Valley game, which I alluded to earlier, I think if there's like a preseason game of the year, if we're like to point out a game that might be the biggest game of the year, that's at least in the conversation, I think. Oh my God, Brennan and Reagan, I think, play in opening week, and I think that's going to be a telling thing for both teams. I think Brennan is going to be pretty good. They got back to the playoffs last year after missing them 2 years ago, finishing second to Harlan. I think that's always, and they usually play each other first of the year, and that's always kind of like the barometer game for them. And that's a good one too. That's one I'm looking forward to. And then I mentioned Piper before, but Piper and Bernie are playing in week 1, and Bernie's, they made it to the state final a couple years ago. Then they made it to the semis last year, and now they have a new coach. who's actually a former assistant coach who got promoted, and they're kind of revamping it. So I'm eager to see how Bernie handles that when they play a quality team like Piper. Those are off the top of my head. And I think if you live in the Southside community, McCollum and Harlandale, and on paper it's not a great matchup because they're usually their seasons are done by then. But I think there's a lot to be said about that rivalry and how much it means in that Harlandale community because it's usually sold out and they have tailgates. They sell tailgate spaces where there's just barbecuing, not nothing, no alcohol, but they have barbecues. They have that, and they're out there all afternoon, just leading up to that game, and that space is filled. And sometimes they go to that game with maybe a combined 4 or 5 wins, but it doesn't deter it. I think it says a lot about the community down there.
All right. It seems like David's putting a stake in a lot of games. Christina, anything you want to get out there and see this year? Did he leave you any games left?
I will say I'm really interested to see a Steel at Westlake in September. I think there's a reason why Steel wants to schedule, a powerhouse like Westlake in the regular season. So I think that's going to be a good kind of litmus test for the Knights. Last year Steel did host Westlake and they lost, and I think like I said, that game kind of exposed some of their flaws and they learned from it. So I'm really excited to see how this year's matchup turns out, especially in terms of, kind of gauging where, Steel could be in terms of making a deep postseason run.
All right. Little insider stuff here, though, from our readers here, or listeners, or viewers. I don't know what they are today.
They're everything.
They're a little bit of everything today.
Yeah.
So we thank you for doing that. And but what coaches are the best interviews in the area?
What coach are the best interviews in the area?
Yeah. What coach is going to give you the best soundbite? What coach is just going to go off? What guy's going to be Jeff Traylor?
Well, I love talking Larry Hill from Smithson Valley. He's an East Central guy. He's got that big Texas drawl, and he's really good. He comes up with some really good quotes. But I like talking to him, and I think the last few years where they've been successful, he's always been an easy guy to talk to after games. He's probably my favorite one to talk to, I think, off the top of my head. I don't know if you've had anyone that's been that you'd like to talk to.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed talking to Alex Franco down at Southwest. He's really good at, kind of explaining things and explaining why he made certain decisions, and he also does give really great quotes. But I also wanted to add the Ricker brothers, Jordan Ricker, who's the new head coach at MacArthur, and Mitchell Ricker, the new head coach at Burbank. They're actually twin brothers. We'll have a story on them coming out next week
in the paper and on expressnews.com.
Yes, thank you, Nick. But they both of them were really good at explaining frankly, just explaining football to me and explaining how, they kind of tell their new assistant coaches, how to kind of break down plays and things like that. And I think, as a reporter, kind of seeing how their minds work, and how they break things down for their coaches, is really helpful to really just having that understanding of, how they see the game.
And one other coach I would like to mention, because I am doing a story on him for Sunday, it's Eddie Salas from Harlan. Some of you might know Eddie. He got diagnosed with cancer on Christmas Eve last year, and he went through chemo. From Eddie says he's cancer free now, but talked to him, and I've talked to him over the years. He's someone that I've really gotten to know really well in some really tough circumstances. This one in particular, so I have a story on that, so be looking out for that. But there's a couple of reasons why I really have always appreciated him, because I've called him twice in probably the most difficult situations that he's ever had to have, at least when he got to Harlan. One was when his wide receiver, Shamari Anderson, died in a car wreck. And I called him as I started seeing tweets about it. And I called him and I left a message. And usually when you call about something like that, you're usually not going to get a call back, at least not right away. Eddie called me back within 5 minutes. He told me what he knew, probably told me more than, most coaches would because it was such a personal thing. He just told me, this is what I know. And I said, okay, great. And that was a tough thing because obviously one of his kids died and his brother was on the team as well. So that was a tough situation. And the other one was in 2020. Harlan, it was the COVID year, and there was just, there was just teams pulling out of playoffs because of safety protocols. What do they call it? Close contacts and all that kind of thing. Well, Harlan had won the last game of the regular season to make the playoffs. And so they were elated and they were really happy about it. And then Stan Lang, the North Side athletic director, calls me and tells me that they're going to have to pull Harlan out of the playoffs because they had a close contact, and so they had to quarantine for 14 days. I think that's what the UIL protocols were. So they had to pull out of the playoffs. And I called Eddie, and he answered his phone, and he he answered my questions. I'm telling you, that doesn't happen a lot when it involves something like that. Either they'll just ghost you on the phone, or they'll just say you need to talk to the PR person. But Eddie always found him for those two circumstances. I always found to be a stand-up guy for that because, and he was right. He was right. He was very prompt with it. So that always left a big impression on me. So for whatever that's worth.
All right, we got another kind of off the cuff question here, but I kind of like it because it's gonna be one you haven't thought about.
Uh-oh. Oh,
It's pretty. It might be pretty easy. It's nothing too wild here. But who has the best uniforms in the San Antonio area? Whose outfit is like that's sharp?
I don't know. Have you come across any that? That's a good question.
Sometimes I think color scheme just matters. I always like kind of like playing like almost like Penn State level, but for that point, I kind of like Bernie. It's just purple white,
Yeah.
just nice and crisp.
I mean, I really like the shade of green that Reagan uses.
Mhm.
Like, I think it's very clean, very crisp. I also like Alamo Heights, their kind of blue and yellow color scheme going. So those two are what immediately come to my mind, at least.
Well, I think for as we do stats
Mhm.
in the press box, the big thing about doing stats is seeing the numbers of players,
Oh yeah, it's a big one for us.
right?
Big one for us.
And
You
it's
never put black on like maroon or anything weird, please.
yes, as aesthetically, uh, it's very simple, but I always appreciate it. I love Smiths and Valley's uniforms because they're just blue and with white numbers that are pretty big, right? And they have the numbers on their helmets too.
Oh,
So
that's clutch.
So if you happen to miss, if they're in the pile, like you're trying to figure out who got the ball in the middle of the pile and you can't really see who got it, but you see the guy coming up with a helmet, 26 or whatever. So to me, that's a big factor. I really like that.
Yeah, that's why I like the old Penn State and even the Alabama looks. Alabama used to put the number on the
It's
helmet
kind
too.
of like
Don't put no fancy logos up there. Put the number up there
it's
so we
kind
know
of like
who they are.
it's like a combo of it. Yeah. And I always thought that's pretty cool. So
All right. All right, a little bit more pertinent question here is how tough is it for the SAISD schools to be aligned in Region 3 instead of Region 4?
well, it's tough because it's a tougher path in the playoffs. Um, I mean, that's your answer right there. I know when they had realignment a couple years ago, I talked to Fred Anthony about the realignment, the athletic director, Fred Anthony. He said, well, there was two parts. There was two things to it. SISD has its own exclusive district, all SISD teams. 2 years before that, they shared a district with Alma Heights. So, that went about as well as you would have thought. So they were happy with it, but they got moved to Region 3. Which is just a tougher path. And I don't know what's going to happen. They're going to do realignment again this upcoming year. Um, it's a hard path. I mean, and traditionally they haven't won a lot of games. I want to say the last playoff game that SISD won. And I might be wrong on this. It might have been Brackenridge in 2012 when they had Ramon Richards when they upset Alamo Heights in the first round. I think that's it. I might be wrong. Someone double check that, but don't be me.
All right. I guess people are liking uniform questions. We also got a question on the best mascot, and I'm going to say it's not Harlandale and it's not Robstown for obvious reasons, but I was kind of like New Braunfels. But what you guys? You gotta go like the unicorns, but any the great mascots we got out there?
We got some good ones. I don't know if you come across any that you like. I like mascot names that we have here.
I like the the Taft mascot, like just kind of seeing him kind of roam around the stands is
Taft Raiders. Yeah.
yeah, like that's always been very amusing.
What is the Taft mascot?
Oh,
The
Raiders.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Like-
what did it dress up as? I haven't been to a Taft game.
Like President Taft. Like
He dresses up as President Taft.
it's like at like baseball games when they have like the presidents like run.
President, like
Yeah.
Nationals games.
Yeah, it's like kind of like one of those.
And interesting. Is he kind of bigger? Taft was kind of a bigger guy.
Yeah, a
Maybe.
little bit, but
I mean,
it's
they don't.
I do like the unicorns. I think unicorns is the cool. Like, I would never buy a shirt,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah. We got
but
neutral press reporters here.
but if I ever moved away or if I didn't do this job anymore, I think I would go buy a unicorn shirt because I think it's cool, man. And it would just say unicorns. It didn't have to say. I don't want. No, I like it. We got some really cool names here. Like we got the Wagner Thunderbirds, which has some significance because Karen Wagner was in the Air Force, and the antlers from Kerrville Tivy was very, very. I think that's just a very unique name.
Yeah, they could have just called them the Bucks or something, right?
Yeah,
Which is a
but
little less
they're
unique.
the-
We get
they're the
we got teams that are called the Bucks. Not a lot of people just antlers.
And the one that I had to look it up because I didn't know what it was. Lanier Vokes.
Let me know though. Like I don't want you to come in.
Voc
just
are
for
like
that.
I think Lanier was a vocational school at one point in its history.
Yeah.
And so they just shortened the vocational name to Vokes, VOKS. I always thought that was a cool thing. So yeah, buttons, Central Catholic buttons. Did not know what that was. I think
I know what this is. This
it's
is a button.
it's a part of a snake or something like that, like
Yeah.
the rattle of a snake or
Oh,
something.
I got buttons on my shirt.
Yeah. So yeah.
And just to see a mascot with just a
Did that
large
answer
button
the
like on
question?
shirt.
I don't. Did that answer? I don't remember what the question.
Yeah, no, I think that kind of answers it for
And I
us.
like Edinburgh Bobcats because that's where I went to school.
That's not very unique. Well, but my high
How
school
many-
school was the Tigers, so
how
I
many-
can't.
yeah, we
how
were
many-
Mustang.
How many schools are named Edinburgh Bobcats? Only
But-
one.
Well, what about in like Scotland? I'm sure there's there's a team.
I'm talking with the city name. Anyway, go ahead.
That's what I was talking. There's Edinburgh, Scotland. They don't quite say it the same
I
way,
don't think
but
they're the Bobcats over there.
they're probably not the Bobcats though.
Well, I'll look that up. And they have an H at the end.
Probably like the Claymores or something.
They might be the claim. Highland Park Scots.
Highland Park Scots. There we go.
Lots of Smith.
We got a lot of mascot stuff here. But if anyone want to ask any relevant football questions before we wrap this up, remember to hit that Q&A button. What other points should we hit on and let these people know that's coming up in this high school football?
I was looking for like other mascots here.
Oh, you're just looking. David can't get off the mascots. He really liked this question. This is our best question of the day.
That's a really cool question. I don't know. I'm just kind of curious to see.
We haven't talked about Lavernia at all.
Oh,
We have not talked about
We
Liverpool.
probably should talk about Lavernia. They're going to be in expressnews.com and in the paper on Sunday.
They-
You'll see where Lavernia is ranked. It's pretty
They-
high.
They might have a high ranking in our rankings, like really high ranking. Yeah, Lavernia. What do you mean? I mean, you went out there to cover
Yeah.
during their practices last
yeah,
year.
I did. I went out to a practice and then I covered their last playoff game when they lost to Kilgore. Yeah, I mean they made their deepest playoff run in program history last year under head coach Brian Knoll. And they're returning Sean Garza, a running back who rushed for over 2,000 yards last season, and he had 27 rushing touchdowns as well. So interested to see what Sean Garza does this year, and he's also going to be playing on the defense this year as a safety. So I think the team will. I think he will have a really obviously a very very large role in helping Lavernia make another deep postseason run, because I think last year they proved that they could do it, and they also didn't win their district. So I think, like I said, they proved that they have the parts to get a really deep playoff run.
Yeah, I mean they caught fire in the playoffs because they finished third in their district, and they were 3-2 in their district, and on their playoff run, they made it to the state semis. On their playoff run, they beat the two teams that beat them in district play, Port Lavaca Calhoun and Bay City. And I think that was kind of the indication where, this is a team not only on that they were obviously improving, but they're returning so many key people back from that team. I can only imagine they're just going to build from that. And I'd love to see if there's like a game, if there's a playoff game, I'd love to see. It would probably, I think Laverny and Davenport are on some kind of collision course if they do what they're supposed to do, depending on where they are in the bracket and everything. They met in the playoffs 2 years ago, and I think they were set to meet up again, but Davenport lost in the second round. I think they lost to I think they lost to Bay City or Port Lavaca Calhoun. So that would be a game to watch because I think they're the best smaller school teams that we have. Yeah. So, but yeah, Lavernia is, yeah, I think we'll see because they're really high on our rankings. So we're going to see how that stands.
All right. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but our good friend of the podcast slash show in Vivo, Matthew Stepp says, I need David to give me any new post-game meal suggestions in San Antonio. I need the intel from the journalists on the ground. Where should he go to eat after he's done with the game? Or at the game?
Or, well,
where's he not gonna get just popcorn?
Well, tell him to go to Southwest if he has to. No, that's a good question. After the game, they're really big on Taco Palenque, which
I like some Taco Palenque.
Yeah, but don't go there.
Don't go to Taco Palenque.
I mean,
they used to be there.
I mean, it's fine. It's fine because Matt goes there a lot. So.
Oh, okay. That explains it.
I could do pregame stuff.
Oh yeah, pregame's always good.
So let's see here. One place I like to go if I'm going to cover a game over at Alamo Stadium or kind of in that area, Alamo Heights. I like to go to a place called Oblate Cafe, which is Tom Osborne actually used to live in that neighborhood. And it's it's between downtown and 410 off of Blanco.
I believe also a friend of the podcast, Mike Sutter. Well, I don't know if he's actually watches our stuff. He's probably too busy reviewing stuff. I believe he gives that very high rankings.
Yeah, I think so that's the place where I have to me, it's my favorite. That's my favorite spot in San Antonio. Tex-Mex spot in San Antonio.
I think maybe we'll have to steal something from Mike Sutter here and do like top 5 places to eat before the game, top 10.
You know what? That's probably a good idea.
That's a great idea, right?
That's probably a good idea.
we just increased our viewership and readership by like 100 by that idea.
I try to think of places that I go eat before games. I don't know. Is there like a spot that you've been to?
Honestly, like I've really just been at Oblate Cafe since you told me about it. So like, yeah.
Yeah. There's up when I have to cover something up in the Steel Davenport area off of 35, like 3009, that 3009 area. There's a place called Abel's Diner, which is in Shirts. It's kind of I like that spot. That's a good spot. It's off where you go to the natural, what do you call it? The caverns. That exit. You loop back around and it's on the west side of 35. That's a good spot for me. And during the spring, a good post game spot that I like to go to is Whataburger because
Whataburger's still getting the love.
Yeah, because we got no time. They don't let us in the press box to write our stories, so we got to go write them somewhere. And so I usually hit up a Whataburger. You can't go wrong with Whataburger, man. So, but I don't think that's it. That's not the answer Matt was looking for.
Yeah, I get tired and feathered for saying this. I prefer In-N-Out. Don't kill me.
In-N-Out. Yeah.
Don't kill me.
I mean, there's better
places in San Antonio to eat though.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But how many are open? And
that's true. Whataburger is always open. It's always there for you.
Yeah. So
it's always there waiting for you.
Matt, I know I didn't help.
I'll
text you some answers because you caught me off guard on that, man. See, all the stuff that we have here, I didn't.
All this stuff that's helping him out here. Nothing on here that says go to Whataburger after the games.
I did not put any food.
No Oblate
I should have known. I should have known. Yeah.
We could talk food all day. All right, so we got a couple other questions. We talked about some players to watch. What are some younger players to watch that are just kind of under the radar? Who might be our newcomer of the year that we haven't discovered yet?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know because
we haven't discovered them yet.
Because they're the newcomer, so they likely haven't played varsity. So I don't know. But some young guys. There's the 2 offensive linemen that are pretty good. Caden Scott, Roosevelt, offensive lineman at Roosevelt. He's going to be a junior, but he really emerged last year as a sophomore. And then Jay Storm Knight, offensive lineman from Judson, is going to be a sophomore. I think they're going to be 2 of our biggest recruits whenever they get to to that point when they graduate, and I think they got a bunch of P4 offers, and I think they're gonna be. Those are the two guys that are on my mind right now. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, just adding off of that, I think Braden Booth at South San, he's an edge. He is entering his junior year, but he really had a breakout sophomore season last year, and he has a bunch of Power Four offers as well. Just kind of thinking of a couple off the top of my head, like I think Baylor's in the mix, Stanford, I believe Ole Miss as well. And I think he is South San's first, serious Power Four football recruit in decades. So that's really exciting, for that community. And I kind of expect him to continue to rack those offers up as he, continues.
And if you buy the paper the next few days, you might read a story.
Especially on Sunday.
If you buy a paper, buy the paper on Monday.
Is it going to be on Monday?
I think it's Monday, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we got this all mapped out, guys.
We got it all right here. You buy the paper on Monday, you might read a story on Braden Booth in the San Antonio Express News.
Well, that seems like a good deal. It seems like you should also go to expressnews.com and subscribe.
Well,
and you should also, while you're there on expressnews.com, you should sign up for our newsletters where you get all the latest information from Christina and David over here. And you should also click over there and look at our brand new scoreboard where we're going to have all the scores. We redid everything for this year. It's nicer. It's nicer. It's a little slicker. You can get all the stats and box scores. And we actually have a newsletter for that too. So if you don't want any of the stories because you don't like to read, I'm sorry, or whatever the question is, and you just want to see the scores, we'll have a newsletter for that. We'll just give you the scores as well. So sign up for all of that, which is what you should really do. So you can read all our stuff, you can watch our stuff, you can listen to us. You just really be with David and Christina all along this football season. Which we do have a couple more questions here. Someone said biggest rivalry week 1, the Whata Bowl. I suppose that's the Whataburger.
The Whataburger Bowl.
The Whataburger Bowl.
I don't think they don't like us to say that, but it is O'Connor and Brandeis.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah,
it's the Whataburger Bowl.
You know what? I don't know if we talked about top rivalries. I think we alluded to them. But yeah, Brandeis and O'Connor, it's like Texas OU in that area. I think. Yeah, there was famously, I think in 2012, maybe 2013, there was a food fight at a Whataburger after a Brandeis O'Connor game. And I think if you just Google that or put that in the search engine in YouTube, Whataburger food fight O'Connor Brandeis, it's going to come up.
Monty, can we cut that into the show? Because that'd be fantastic. Please. Monty is our producer here that produces all our podcasts and live things here.
So they call it it's not called the Whataburger Bowl, but I have seen people wearing shirts with the obviously counterfeit with the Whataburger Whataburger Bowl, O'Connor and Brandeis. Yeah, that's a pretty fierce rivalry, and it extends beyond football. I covered a playoff soccer game years ago. I think it was I don't know if it was a girls or boys game at Ferris, and it was a playoff soccer game, and there was a line of people getting in to watch it, which I don't know if you've ever been to a high school soccer game. That doesn't happen, man. Maybe at the state tournament, but that just told me how big a rivalry this is. And yeah, that's actually going to be there's always a nice atmosphere. I think it's probably right up there with McCollum Harlandale. Yeah.
My experience for high school soccer is there's usually just as long as line to get into the game as there is to get to the hot chocolate because it's in January and everyone's freezing.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
The best thing about covering soccer was always getting hot chocolate for me. Move the soccer season, people.
Yeah.
All right. We got one final question here we're going to hit just because it's a little bit more broad too. And I think it touches just everyone will have an opinion on this. And what's the wildest high school football game you've ever covered?
Well, you don't have you do have a wildest high school game that you covered.
She covered some pretty wild college games too, but speak on either. What's the wildest game you've ever seen?
And it was interesting because Christina is new to covering high schools, so one of the things that she kind of had a little learning curve was doing stats, which is part of it. So, and the first game that she ever covered stats,
it was Piper's last playoff game last season. It was Piper and one of the Corpus Christi teams.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head. But it went to double overtime, and that was like the first game that I ever had to take my own stats on, and so it just got out of hand really quickly. Because I think when I was, assigned to cover that game, I don't think any of us expected that game to go into double overtime. So yeah, I think that's probably the craziest game that I've covered. Just because like, I was new and like I was still in the learning process of, like David said, how to take my own stats. But also now that I kind of think about it, I don't know if I've covered another double overtime high school game.
Yeah, and I was down in Edinburgh covering the Smithson Valley Edinburgh Vela game, and she was texting me because I was reading it. I was reading frantic. I was reading and I could hear her frantic voice because she was really freaking out. I'm like, just do what you can because that was a tough one to do your first ever be responsible for stats. Just I think it was a lot of passing too, and when there's a lot of passing, you have to account for the quarterback yardage and the receiving yardage, and just somehow hoping that it balances out, and that's just the added thing. So that was a tough one for you. And I told her it's never going to get worse than this. This is like the hardest game that you'll ever have to do stats for, I think. For me, the wildest game I ever covered, and this is when I used to work up in Dallas. I was covering Denton Ryan and Ennis in a playoff game. I think it was a state quarterfinal or something. And they had it over at the old Texas Stadium where the Cowboys played. And the way that was, I think the last 3 minutes of the game, they would let you down on the field, the reporters down on the field, so you can go get your interviews. And so I started making my way down there. And as I was making my way down there, Ennis had a pretty good lead. I think they had about a 10, maybe a 2 touchdown lead, and with about 3 minutes left. So I started making my way down there. And in my head, I was I was writing my lead. I was trying to go over all the stuff I needed to talk to the Ennis people, talk to the quarterback. The quarterback at the time was Graham Harrell, who went to Texas Tech. He played under his dad, Sam Harrell. And as I got down there, I think Denton Ryan scored a touchdown. They had a really great quarterback by the name of James Battle. And they had a guy named Jarvis Moss who ended up going to Florida. I don't know if it might have been before your time. but anyway.
Florida Gator over here.
So Ryan scored, and I said, oh, this could be interesting if they get the onside kick or whatever. I think they got the onside kick, and then Ryan ended up winning that game at the last minute. And in my head, I had to like kind of redo my whole story that I had written in my head. And one thing I remember interviewing the Ryan kids and all that. And then I went over to Sam Harrell, and then interview all those reporters interviewing him. And I'll never forget Graham going to his dad. Graham was in tears, man. He was just heartbroken. And I'll never forget. This is something I'll never forget. He just went into his dad's arm, and his dad put his arm around him because it was such a devastating loss for that. And it was something that, to me, and I don't know, it was probably over 20 years ago that it happened, but it's still very vivid in my mind. So that's probably the wildest one that I ever covered.
Yeah, that seems pretty wild. I think the wildest one I ever covered was I can't remember who they were playing, but it's Belton when David Ash was quarterback.
David Ash, yeah.
They're down, the last play of the game. Everyone thought it was gonna be a Hail Mary, so their defense was playing back. What does he do? They throw an out and then run a hook and ladder, win the game on a hook and ladder.
Yeah.
I was like, what the heck? A hook and ladder? What the heck? But it worked because everyone was playing deep because they thought it was going to be a Hail Mary.
Yeah, you just try to get some momentum and just get ahead of steam and go.
Just go downhill. So, outside of the college games where it was Baker Mayfield versus Patrick Mahomes, that was the wildest thing I ever covered.
Yeah.
That was way wild. I was like, oh, they scored again. Oh, they scored again.
If you ever see that, every once in a while, you'll see it like on Twitter or something. They just kind of post that. They just post the side-by-side box scores of them. I think didn't like
Mahomes had over 700 yards,
but he threw like 70 times or something.
Yeah,
something crazy like that.
That was the wildest game I ever covered. Mahomes had over 700 yards and they lost.
Yeah, that's
This is why Cliff Kingsbury is not a head coach. Sorry, Cliff.
Well, there's a track record on that.
there is a track record on that. But overall, I just appreciate everyone joining us for the day, and especially my guests, David and Christina, all of our attendees, everyone asking questions. Thank you for joining us. for another edition of In Vivo. And again, once again, go check out the paper this Sunday. And throughout the week, we got some Monday stuff coming out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all the way through football season. Sign up for our newsletter. Sign up for all of our stuff we do. Follow us for high school football. Once again, as our colleague Mike Finger says when he signs off on all the Spurs podcasts, remember to keep it real.
Keep it real.
Keep it real.
Happy birthday, Casey Musgraves.
Happy birthday, Keith. Okay, dude.